So welcome everybody to this talk called the Power of Recognition. And it's another talk in a series about pain that I've been doing with a few different people. And tonight I'm joined by the lovely Shukri Devi.
Hi everybody.
And for those who don't know me, I'm Meera. And we're Bright Path Ishaya monks. And so we just want to share our experience and let you know what's possible, what the power of recognition can do for you, what it means even from our own experience, and how that's impacted on our lives and our experience of pain, whether that's a physical pain, mental torment, or emotional overload. So it's applicable for all of those really, because in any given moment there's always a choice. We're not always aware of it, but there's always a choice for peace or for pain. But we're not always aware of the fact that we have a choice or even how to make that choice. So I've been using the ascension techniques that the Bright Path Ishayas teach for over 10 years now, and it's radically changed my experience. And what I've found that they've done compared to other practices that are similar, other meditation practices that are similar, is it's really cultivated a greater level of alertness, which gives you so much more clarity, so much more awareness. It just equips you and allows you to recognize what's going on and to recognize what is available beyond the experience that you have when the mind is in play, when the mind is going 24/7. It has an impact on our experience. And as you learn to cultivate an awareness of stillness, so your experience changes as you go. And so for me, I've found that this recognition has changed everything. You know, you go from a completely different mode of operation. When you're thinking, it has an impact on your body, on any symptoms you have, and it changes the way you experience everything. The thoughts that we have and the ones that we see actually are often like, you know, the surplus. There's so much more going on in the unconscious mind, and those unconscious patterns of thinking influence everything. They create filters that we experience everything through. And it's not a pure, clear experience. There's a really beautiful experience available to everybody, that when the mind stills, you can actually experience everything with complete purity and absolute clarity. And so anything that you're doing, and doing is usually thinking, starts to become more apparent. You start to see the mechanism of the mind and how it does impact on your experience. And so for me, it's like literally being in a dark room. The minute the mind stills and I become present, it's like turning on the light. And then there's a recognition there. There's an understanding, an experience that surpasses anything that you can believe is possible, actually. And in the light of that recognition, then your experience of pain changes. It becomes just a body symptom, just a sensation in the body that you can be aware of, but there's no suffering involved. So that's a little bit about how I've experienced it. But Shukri, how is it for you? Like, what does the power of recognition mean for you?
So for me, the power of recognition is kind of everything, not just to do with pain, but actually with everything, because it's like it's a return to the essence of myself, beyond all thought, beyond all movement, where, as Meera was saying, there's just this incredible experience of space and peace. And I love the fact that recognition is, when you're recognizing something, it's because you already know what it is. It's you're remembering something that you've always known. So I've been using, it's just been up in my awareness a lot, that word, because a lot of our practice is to do with its focus is the stillness within. And when you recognise that in every moment, it's just like coming home. It's a very, very relaxing and restful place to live life from. And it is very different to what I had experienced before, where my mind was very, very active, very judgmental, a lot of stress. So recognition is very, very powerful. It's literally changes the experience moment to moment. And actually, I love what you're doing here, Meera. You're with this series of pain talks, because everybody's experience is so individual. It's so subjective, and I don't consider myself at all as being an expert in pain, because I've been very lucky that for most of my life I haven't had to deal with a lot of pain. It's been mostly fairly dull chronic pain. Just I play the violin, so there's been pain from that, but up until this year, and I had a very interesting experience at the first half of this year, where I seemed to be developing a very quick infection, and it was creating an awful lot of pain, and it happened over a weekend, and it got increasingly more intense and more intense, to the point where it was way beyond anything I knew was possible to deal with. It was so intense, and so by the Sunday I was having to, the only way I could really deal with it was with breathing, just focusing on the breath. And then what I noticed was, if I just became really alert to being super present, what happened was the pain seemed to not only dissipate, but it completely disappeared. And I was able to do that really through grace, but also because I remembered that there are human beings who can not experience pain. There's people who've been very conscious beings in history, like Jesus or Buddha, whoever. And I understand that was their experience because they had such high levels of consciousness. So it just occurred to me, well, if they can do it, it's possible for any human vessel to be able to experience that. And yeah, what I discovered was that a lot of pain seemed to increase, seemed to get more intense through fear, through the thoughts that I was having around why the pain was there, how long it was going to go on for, what did it mean, what was the future going to be like, all that kind of thing. And as soon as I was able to just drop that and as I say, just rest in the moment, it was absolutely astonishing, because something that was so intense seemed to disappear. Now that was my experience then. I wasn't able to do it if I was moving around. The pain was back, but when I was lying down, it appeared to disappear, which was just absolutely fascinating. And if I changed where I was putting my attention, then the pain came back. So it was almost like this alarm saying, oh, you've moved from the present moment. So I actually ended up laughing at one point because it was like this gift that was so intense that I had no choice about not seeing it. And therefore I was able to keep returning into being present. So it's not something I'd particularly want to go through again, but I am very, very grateful for that experience, to know it almost felt like the pain wasn't actually real because it was possible not to experience it. And I don't understand that. My mind doesn't understand that. But it is what I experienced. And then the next day I went into hospital, and I could see other things as well. It's like everything that's presented to us is an opportunity for us to see things. And I could see that there were places where I wasn't loving myself. And I was shown so much care and so much love from nurses and doctors that it completely blew me away. And it showed me where I was resisting that. I wasn't used to it. I've lived on my own for a very long time, and so I'm very used to doing everything by myself and being completely independent, not having to ask for help. And here I was having to ask for help, and it was just amazing to see how raw that felt, how just the vulnerability, how much that can allow you to grow, to drop all sense of an ego, all sense of separation even, and just allow everything that's being presented in to accept all that love and that care. So it was very interesting from an emotional point of view as well. So as I say, it's really something that I'm very grateful to have experienced, and would be very grateful not to ever have to experience ever again. But Meera, I was wondering if, because that was a very acute experience, whereas if I understand correctly, your experience of pain is much more of a chronic thing. So, it's been around for most of your life. So do you have a different take on it?
I've experienced both, actually. I experienced the acute pain when my ribs were broken. So that was the biggest eye opener for me, to know that my body could actually be damaged, and yet I could transcend the experience of pain. Pain was always possible. Suffering didn't need to happen at all. And I kind of danced backwards and forwards from, probably a little bit like your experience was, like as soon as you start moving around, then, you almost lose the ability to remain alert. But initially, my exploration with pain has been through a long-term condition I have called symphysis pubis dysfunction, and it also affects my mobility. Essentially, when it's at its worst, if you like, I can't lift my legs at all, so I can't walk either. So that's a whole other thing that you have to deal with, and there's been times with that when the pain has been so intense that whatever you're doing, whoever you're with, it's just like something's blaring at you continually. Like you can't. It makes it really difficult to focus on anything, and very easy to snap or get triggered or angry by things because the intensity levels are just so high. And that can happen with, anxiety and emotion too, actually. If you're really, to a high level of overwhelm, then everything coming at you feels louder and more intense than it does normally. But I've been, I don't really experience that much pain from this condition anymore. It's more sort of aches. We call them aches and pains, but for me, compared to the level of pain I have experienced, it's very, very mild, very mild. But because of the contrast of being completely still and present and there being absolutely no pain, even a little bit now is a bit, I don't want to experience it anymore. And it can even be a slap in the face when it's a mild experience. And recently, actually, just over the course of the last week, it's been really interesting to just become aware of twinges in my body, whether it's in my neck and shoulders or if it's in my hip areas or wherever it is. Even my knees been playing up recently. That there's just an ability to just pay a little bit more attention and allow the movement in my body. We resist so easily, so automatically and so unconsciously. You don't recognize that we're doing it. And so for me, it's always a gift. Actually, now, it didn't used to be, but it's now a gift when I recognize that these aches are happening, and it's just like, oh, I'm actually not as present as I could be. So I just put a little bit more attention on stillness. And if you don't know how to do that, then it's actually just putting more attention, just paying more attention, giving complete attention to whatever is in front of you. And then actually you naturally almost slippy slide into being aware of stillness and silence. Everything just quietens down a little bit, calms down a little bit. And it's, for me, a good thing, actually, that these little aches and pains present, because my experience grows then very quickly. I then, it's like a little signpost to remaining present. I know I've left ever so slightly. I might be aware of stillness and silence, but it's not got all of my attention. And so I find it useful. There are days when I just think, oh, could I just not have a day without this? There's always days, and if any of you experience anything that gets quite intense, whether it's I know, Lucy, I know you experience intense migraines, and for me sometimes my neck and shoulders can just build up in intensity. It's mild really compared to what I used to get, but it's still uncomfortable. But there's always the possibility to just stop and pause and pay attention. Pay attention with curiosity. Notice whatever's in your experience right now. And you can just play along in this moment, actually, to just notice what you're aware of right now. What do you notice? And whatever you notice, just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge what you're noticing. If there's any judgment or opinion of it, just let that go for a moment and just pay attention with curiosity. And wonder, what else is there, Just explore in your experience right now, what else is there? Maybe you notice pain in your body, maybe you notice thoughts, maybe you notice an emotional feeling. So you've noticed that, wonderful, what else is there? When you're noticing pain, there's a tension on the body, but there's a space around you. Space within you, actually. We're 99.9% empty space. So just by pausing and paying attention and seeing what you notice and acknowledging, never want to be battling or fighting with pain. That increases the intensity, increases the resistance, which increases the pressure, the friction, and everything feels more intense, more uncomfortable, more painful. Just acknowledge whatever it's like right now. Be innocent. You know, we carry the past into this moment. When we do that, then it has an impact on this moment. But be innocent, even if you've been in pain for, you know, the last 10 years, what's possible in this moment? Open yourself up to the possibility of it being different. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be, but just innocent, dropping all expectation, all need for anything to change right now in this moment. Just let it be. And let any natural impulses that want to rise. You know, when we're resisting, there's a tensing in the body. When there's tensing in the body, it's going to lead to suffering and pain. Just letting that movement happen. But what I'm finding is that what stops that and what initiates the automatic resisting and tensing again is fear. You know, a feeling unsafe, which you may or may not be aware of. So anything you can do to make yourself feel safe, comfortable, okay in this moment. And that might be just reminding yourself that there is no danger, and pay attention to the space that you're in, your room that you're in, so you can actually see what's there, see that there is no danger. Because it can come, you know, from an unconscious place. Just an underlying fear can just bubble up sometimes. And it's just energy moving through you. And if you allow that movement to move through you, and just watch and notice what part of the body that you feel it in, it allows it to keep moving. And in the allowing of the movement, then the experience of your body will be different. Intensity will reduce. And it's always about allowing. Noticing if you're resisting, acknowledging that you're resisting. Just allow the resisting, even if you can't allow completely. Just allow a little bit more than you did in the moment before. Let everything be a little bit more gentle than the moment before. And in playing in that way, it cultivates alertness naturally. Like silence and stillness, it's our natural state, so we'll always become more aware of it. It'll always become bigger in our experience, more evident, if we just pay attention and allow. Pay attention, acknowledge, be innocent and allow. Never resist. Never resist anything. You know, the resistance causes the suffering, not the thing that you're resisting. So often, the only experience we have of our body, of the world around us, is one in a resistant state. So when someone says allow and don't resist it, well, you know, it hurts, so of course you want to resist it. You don't want to allow that. But actually, you're not allowing pain as such. As pain isn't, when you start exploring it, isn't really a tangible thing. It's only, you know, the mind dictates how you're feeling, tells you how you're feeling, and then you'll experience that feeling. And the mind stills. In my experience, there's no pain. There's certainly no suffering. The pain will go to a body sensation. So it's still there, it's not gone, but the experience of it really is only pain when there's dialogue involved. Do you have anything similar like that, Shukri? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, I was very aware when the pain was building for me that there was a lot of dialogue and there was a lot of resistance. I was trying very hard to release resistance through breathing. and actually I found singing helped as well. I don't mean launching into my favourite pop song, but just kind of just a gentle humming, just really, I don't know whether it was the vibration of it, but it seemed to really help my body. But I was really aware, and actually I would invite anyone who is on this call who doesn't ascend, who doesn't have a practice necessarily that will bring them directly to stillness. Be aware, like Meera's saying, just be really aware of the thoughts that come up and see what they're telling you. And even notice how long you've been having those thoughts, saying the same thing. For me, this whole thing is a game of love. And it's really amazing, actually, that, as I say, everything that's presented allows us to love more. And I used to always practice that on the outside. I was delighted to give love on the outside and completely forgot to do it on the inside. And it's amazing when everything just becomes that bit more gentle, and you hear the voice that's telling you things that are uncomfortable, that are possibly extremely unkind. And when you become aware of it, then you have a choice then. And you can choose to just rest. You can choose to use an ascension attitude, or you can become aware of the space in the room. But I found it incredibly helpful to relax my body when the pain was very high. And it was amazing just how quickly the tension would appear again, within seconds even, and it would just be a constant kind of ebb and flow of taking my awareness away and then realising the pain was building and then coming back again. But I think that emotions like fear or frustration can keep us separate from source. It appears like they can keep us separate from love, from gentleness, from peace. And so it's very, very helpful to grow your alertness muscle, to see what your mind does, because it may be that it's creating more of your experience than you realise. That was certainly my revelations with that experience, that depending on where I put my attention really transformed what was happening in the experience. My body was doing what it was doing anyway, and yes, I had to go and get help, but my experience of the whole process changed immensely. And also what I was aware of was the amount of love coming towards me that I've really tried to resist. It was so funny. Suze, who's on this call, she was absolutely amazing throughout the whole time. She was picking me up, taking me to hospital, bringing me back, getting me shopping. She was just doing loads and loads and loads of really thoughtful, loving things. And the whole way through, I was dragging my heels going, no, thank you so much, but I feel bad, la 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 la. All this mind stuff, and it's just voices. Suze was an absolute angel, and she just kept giving and giving and giving. and I all I had to do was just let go of the voice and completely accept with open arms what was coming towards me. So it's also great to be alert to what is being offered to you.
Certainly is.
Yeah.
So we've been talking for over 30 minutes already.
Nothing.
If anybody has, there's something else I can say, but if anybody has any questions while the questions are coming in, then please type them into the chat box, and Darshana will read them out for you. And it can be about anything that we've said on the call today, or maybe you have an experience with pain, whether it's physical or a health symptom or an emotional or mental pain. Then feel free to just type it in there. Maybe keep it short if you can, and we'll do our best to answer them. But I just wanted to, while you're doing that, and see if you have any questions. Maybe you haven't, but while we're waiting to see if there are any questions coming in, I just wanted to give the example actually of firewalking, because it was something that I did a little while back as part of another course, and I was terrified of it. I was terrified, like you didn't have to do it. So, like all on the run up to it, it's just like, well, if I'm not going to do it, I don't do it. It's okay. And, the thoughts about that. But in going through the workshop and just allowing the process, it's like you just almost, again, it's just putting yourself in another mode of operation. And it's an incredible thing. And most people have heard of firewalking. I assume you all have heard of that. But it's incredible. You're actually walking on hot coals that can burn you. And my experience of it was that they actually didn't feel hot or cold. And I could feel the scrunchy texture underneath my feet, in between my toes even, and, just walking on it. And they tell you not to run, not to go too fast in case you fall, and then you're more likely to get burnt. But, you walk across it and there's just like no hot, no cold, no nothing, but you can very, very alert, very aware, and you can feel the texture of it. And then when I got to the other side, I'd forgotten the instruction, which was to wipe your feet on the mat there, just to make sure that there's no coals that stay on, get in between your toes or whatever. And so I walked on past that, and they had to pull me back. And in that time, I think one tiny little bit had stuck on my foot and burnt me. Not massively badly, actually, but it was quite painful in truth. But for me, the point of that is that we can be in a sustainable state where, the things that happen in life don't need to hurt us. And there's people who, lie on beds of nails. So we've always known this. And I used to explore shamanism before I came to Ascension. And shamans always had a rite of passage, which was if they could handle hot coals from the fire, if they could pick the hot coals up and not burn themselves, then they had transcended the physical experience. And firewalking demonstrates that anybody can do that. When I did this, it was a workshop with, I think, 13,000 people. It was a huge amount up in London, and I don't think everybody did it, but the majority did, and that's a lot of people to do that, and nobody got burnt. Nobody got burnt, apart from the tiny little bit, that I got, and I think a few others got that, and some had no burns, and they were like, well, I'm pretty sure it wasn't that hot then. Can't have been that hot because I didn't get burnt, and yeah, it was, because I knew, and I was actually glad I had the little burn I did get, because I knew how seriously burnt I could have gotten if I hadn't followed the instruction, which basically brings you present. Brings you to a completely different mode of operation, which is actually our natural state too. It's not something we have to do to get there. It's really an undoing, an unraveling, coming back to your natural state, coming back, like an elastic band with thinking, where it's like we're stretching, we're forcing, we're controlling, we're trying. And in any given moment, with or without the ascension techniques that we teach, you can just stop, pause, breathe, pay attention. And in an instant, you can just be present. and then we'll leave, and then we can come back. And it's just training that awareness muscle so that you stay in the alert, relaxed, easy, rested state. Is there anything else you'd like to add before? I think there's one question that's coming, Shukri, but is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just that I think that there are possibly two things going on. I think there is a possibility to transcend pain using the power of the mind, but I also think that there's the possibility of transcending pain by going beyond the mind. I don't know enough about this to talk in depth about it, but maybe they're the same thing. I don't know, but I think it's possible that it's different. And also, I just wanted to say that if I can imagine myself listening to this talk 10 years ago and thinking, what are they on? Like, this is not my experience. I have pain all the time. It's a nightmare, la 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 la. And so I totally understand that, and I would just really say to you, just keep being open to possibility. I would never have believed that I would have the experience that I had this year, but it happened. So it is a possibility. And when you're open to something, it's much more likely to happen. So if you're intrigued by what we're talking about, then you can talk to us about the practice that we do, or find your own practice that can take you to that place of stillness, so you can explore and keep exploring. I'm sure we'll put our details up in the chat box before we go tonight, if you do want to keep in touch and ask questions and things. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, and sometimes it has to. But for me, I think what makes a difference is it's almost like it gets so bad that I can't hold on anymore. So bad that I just give up. And even before I started playing with it, there would be times when the pain would just ebb, it would just ease off. And it'd just be like, oh, thank goodness. No idea how it happened. But actually, things getting really intense and really extremely painful can be the thing that facilitates a let go happening, because you just can't hold on anymore, And also for me, I think I had to get to a stage where I couldn't tolerate living the way I was living. I couldn't live like it anymore. I didn't want to live like it anymore. And that was when I started looking and finding things that helped. I think if we really want to get to the point and are inspired that it's possible to transcend it, then we will look and find what helps. And if you've already got something, like if you've already got the ascension attitude, you've already got something that will help you transcend pain. And then it's applying the teaching, because it's so simple. Often the mind gets involved and we actually don't apply it. I see it in my own experience. I'm not actually following the instruction. I'm thinking about it. I'm adding something to that and complicating it, which muddles the experience. So Darshana, if we can hand over to you to see what questions there may be.
Shukri Devi, one share from Bonnie, a couple of questions. Bonnie was saying, it's interesting about the power of the mind. I used to do fire walking too, and one time I said, I can't believe it doesn't hurt, and right after that I got burnt. The power of the mind is incredible. And a question from Henk says, I have always had pain in my feet because I have gout. Can you solve that too?
Solve it as in heal the gout? Yes or no? Yes or no? Heal the gout, do you mean? Or transcend the pain?
Yeah, transcend the pain.
So far,
okay,
everything.
Yes, no, I really want to transcend the pain, because it will never heal.
Yeah, and that for me is always everything I've come across in my own. Obviously, I can only share what my own experience is, and everything that I've come across. I do seem to be coming across quite a lot. I've been able to transcend it, because it almost doesn't matter what it is, what the body symptom is, what the pain is, where it's coming from, how intense it is. In any given moment, you can just let it be there. You can give it permission to be there. You can allow the body part to just let the movement happen in it, recognize if there's any tension and just let go a little bit more, and shift your awareness, like how to do this, Hank. Shift your awareness onto stillness, and then put a little bit more attention on that, and a little bit more attention on the stillness, a bit more, and just keep doing that, because that for me is what makes the biggest difference, because pain is content, stillness is the context. Pain, thoughts, emotions, body sensations, sound, it's all content. And meditation takes you through to, particularly the sentient attitudes that we teach, take you directly and automatically through to a direct experience of the context of stillness and silence and space. Stillness underlying the movement, silence underlying the sound, and space underlying the content of the object, whether it's your physical body part that's hurting, or the laptop or device that you're watching this talk on. And it's shifting your awareness from the content onto the context. The ascension attitudes do that for you automatically. And then it's just paying attention so that you start to become more intimately aware and aligned with that, because we are that still silent space. It's not this separate space that we're going to. It's so often what we do in a meditation practice is we make the peace, we make the stillness as a separate object to us. We've got to do something to get to an experience of peace. And it's simpler than that. It's just a shift of awareness. Your attention is on the content, and actually you can put your attention on the content of the body part that's hurting, and then just pay attention. What else is there in your experience now? Notice what else there is. And then still, what else is there, Maybe the mind comes in and goes, well, no, it's still hurting. Notice that thought is happening. Let it come, let it go. All thoughts will come and go. We know that all thoughts come and go because we have lots of them. If thoughts didn't come and go, then we would only have one thought and we'd stay with that. But actually, all thoughts come and go. And it's what's underlying the thoughts, that still silent space. That's always present. And it's just shifting your attention onto that. The ascension attitudes do it for you automatically. And then just paying attention, 100% attention, so that you really start to become consciously aware of that space they take you to.
I think it's really interesting the different approaches you can have, because if your goal is to get rid of pain, it's unlikely to happen because you're still focusing on the pain. Whereas if you're wholeheartedly entering into an experience of stillness, and that's all you want to experience, and you're giving 100% to that, then it might be that at some point you realise the pain's not there anymore. Who knows? But that's one of the subtleties of the mind, I think, is that you can, or certainly I would try and make something happen, like prolong my experience of stillness or get rid of pain or whatever. And it's the one thing that seems to keep me out of the experience. So yeah, it's as Meera's saying, it's where we put our attention is golden.
You kind of answered this next question really with what you've been saying, but Donna's asking, can we transcend nausea too? I start chemo next week, and as much as Ascension has got me through so much so far, and I honestly have not been happy for ages having upped my closed eye time, I am nervous about feeling sick as I hate it. I'm worried the nausea will distract me from the present moment.
Do you have anything on that, Shukri?
Yes, I do. I'm just trying to find Donna. Where is she? Ah, hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I was having this conversation with somebody fairly recently about sickness and actually being sick. And I was saying that I had always had a relationship with that where I was terrified of it, actually. I absolutely hated it. And the reason I realised that the reason I felt so strongly about it was because the resistance was so all-consuming that it made it 100 times worse. And so, without going into too much detail, the last time I was sick, I just let my body do what it had to do. And I think it's the same for your treatment. It's kind of having a trust in the process, that it's going to do exactly what all the cells in your body need it to do. And yes, nausea is a similar thing to pain. It's like there's a distraction. You know, you can play with this. If you do have that symptom, see what happens if, for example, you were to watch your most favourite film, or you were to play your most favourite song, or you meet somebody that you haven't seen for ages. I bet you wouldn't be feeling sick because you would be 100% attention on the person or whatever. So it's something to play with and see how you go.
Yeah, I had experience with nausea a little while back, actually. I wasn't actually sick. Sometimes actually the feeling of nausea can be worse than actually being sick, can't it? If it just stays with you, for quite some time. And the previous time I'd had nausea, it was just horrible. Whereas this last time, there was just a bit of a difference. Like, I think I've just gotten so much more aware of when there's part of me that's just tensing against what's happening, almost just like not necessarily always the physical side of things, but there's just like energy almost always wants to come through and enliven us. And so, you know, nausea is almost like it's a wave of nausea. It can feel quite static sometimes because it's like we're just resisting it. But, you know, if you can just like tune in, and then maybe it'll be a cool thing to play with, actually. You know, when horrible stuff happens in our lives, I think it's finding a way to be a little bit more lighthearted and playful with it, you know, and curious, you know, like I wonder what is actually possible. And so in the last time, it was just like the wave of nausea came, and I recognized it as a wave, and then it's just like I just let it move through me. And then it didn't feel anywhere near as intense or uncomfortable as it normally would do. So maybe that's something that you can, if that happens, you can play with. So were there any more questions, Darshana, or is that it now?
On the questions, just a nice share from Val saying, you were told you would never walk again, so I am in awe of your progress.
Thanks, Mum. Yeah, it's amazing what's possible. You know, I think that's for me is being open and curious and seeing what's possible, because the mind's very rigid. The mind always has an opinion and it has an idea and an expectation of what's going to happen. And for me, things have really started changing when I stopped being so rigid in that, and I really got curious and playful in that. And the first time I got really playful was when my ribs were broken. So it was a very painful, horrible, debilitating experience. And yet it started becoming enjoyable, because when I played with it and then I got to the point where the pain went, I could actually move my body more. You know, I could reach and get my drink, which before, you know, that would have winded me. And when we're in that resistant state, everything is just harder. And so for me, yeah, it's almost like I don't want to bring on like a broken bone or something else to play with. But at the same time, you know, if you have got an experience that's been presented to you, whether it's, you know, you going through treatment, Donna, or, you know, migraines that you keep getting, or something that's happening, that it's happening whether you like it or not, then to just be more playful and explorative in that, to see what's possible. You know, do I have to suffer through this, or can it be different? You know, and that curiosity leads to you starting to become aware of more, of a completely different experience of whatever is happening, because it's never the content that's a problem, it's our relationship with it, you know. And so no matter what is happening in my life, no matter what symptoms I get, you know, whether that's mobility, the inability to walk, or whether there's pain in there, or I also have asthma, you know, when I can't breathe, it's just playing with it. I had asthma come up really badly the other night, which I haven't had for many, many years, you know. It's been really mild. Really, my asthma these days is just, it feels a little bit more restricted. But it was just like I was gasping for breath, and I'd used my inhaler and it wasn't working. And it's a bit like, oh, hello, what do I do now? And I explored. And so I discovered. My experience just changed in that exploring. Changed in that moment where I became curious rather than trying to change the experience I was having. Because the minute, I think Shukri, you mentioned it, the minute you want the pain gone, the minute you want anything to be any different than it is right now, will lead to suffering. And it's just recognizing that you are resisting and acknowledging it. Just acknowledging it stops you resisting so much. There's pain coming up, acknowledge it and see what happens. Always innocently. Drop all expectations. It allows things to be different.
We've got a couple more questions that have just come in. Next one is on a similar theme. I get inflammation build up at times. Can ascension be used to stop a flare up?
Ascension isn't a physical healing tool necessarily. That might be a byproduct. But yeah, it's not like a magic wand to heal physical stuff. However, what I've noticed is that the more the purer my experience is, the less, the more quickly I heal, but the less physical stuff is actually happening in the body. I presume because there's less stress in the system and it's constantly being emptied out. So yeah, it's possible that it will help as a byproduct. And I think it comes down to the purity of the experience.
Yeah, for me, a consistent practice continually changes my relationship with pain, but you never want to use the ascension attitudes to try and change anything, because in that controlling, there's attachment, there's holding on. And also to want to, even the question, say like, can you stop a flare up? And it's just like, well, then you're going into the future, waiting for a flare up it's not happening in this moment. And for me, it's always about coming back to this moment. What's your experience like now? If a flare up happens, then you can play with your ascension attitudes. You can ask for help, ask for us to guide you through that. But to need anything to be different in a future moment, you can't do that. You can only change things now in this moment. But the consistent practice, any consistent meditation practice, it's accumulative. And so for me, my body does just get lighter and easier. But more importantly than making me healthier is it cultivates alertness, so that when something does happen, I can see what's happening and there's more capacity to be able to choose for a more peaceful experience, to just let it go, to let that movement that wants to come through the body happen. So the resistance doesn't lead to suffering. So I hope that helps. But yeah, if a flare-up happens, give me a call.
Thank you, Shukri Devi. There's one more question, but specifically to you, Shukri Devi, from Bonnie. She said, you said you had a lack of loving yourself in your life that the pain showed you. What is the best way that you found letting the love in, to allow the stillness in, to allow the people in your life to help you in?
Great question. And I think my answer to that would be, it was awareness. I didn't realise that that was the case. In specific reference to this situation with pain, when I went into the hospital and nurses would bring me things, or there was, it was just unbelievable how many people were involved in this whole thing. And there'd be 15 people around my bed 3 times a day with clipboards, and I was just blown away by how many people were able to look after me. And so the universe showed me, it really showed me, there was, they've been so thorough in everything that they've done for me. And it's funny because actually this has been going on for quite some time. The fact that I ended up in hospital was probably because I got lost in the system a year before. And it's amazing how, because of ascension, because of what I see, what I choose, well, I don't even choose it, it just is the experience. I wasn't focusing on any of the negative things that had happened. Prior to ascension, I would have focused on all the things that had gone wrong, all the people who'd let me down, all this, all the negative stuff. And I just was so present all the time. It was just, well, that happened. What's happening right now? Just let it go. It's not personal, just experiencing. But I would say that the more we get to experience our true essence, the more we put all our focus on enjoying getting to know our essence, then we just become so much more open to everything that's being presented. Yeah, so the universe showed me, and I was open.
So I've just put the Bright Path website address if anybody hasn't got the Ascension techniques and wants to look and find out more about them. You can also email Meera, or Shukri Devi, and it's literally, and I can, maybe Darshana can type in for me. It's just Meera@thebrightpath.com and Shukri Devi @thebrightpath.com. If you want to find out more about the Ascension attitudes, or if you have a question that occurs to you after this is finished, then feel free to email us. We'll be delighted to hear from you. But I just want to leave you with one last thing, and that's stop needing to know why. You know, you don't need to analyze what's going on with your body, or even with emotional responses, or your life in general. You know, when you need to know why, it really keeps the mind in play, and it just makes everything heavier and harder, and keeps you away from this moment, which is where the peace is, where the capacity to heal is greater. You know, so let go of the why. If you notice that you're trying to work something out, just let go of needing to know why. Honestly, it makes such a big difference if you can do that. You know, and recognize the good. So two things: recognize the good in this moment. You know, we're so often focusing on what's wrong in order to remove it, and all we're doing is keeping our attention on what's wrong, and what you put your attention on grows. So focus on the good. What's good in your life right now? What do you want to keep in your life right now? What do you like about your life right now? What do you want it to be like? You know, focus on the good, and then that will grow. It just keeps life simpler and easier and more enjoyable.
That's awesome, Meera. Yeah. I was just going to say that I think when you let go of controlling everything, I spent my whole life trying to control myself and everybody else. And when you really let go of that and trust in process, trust in however you see it, source, universe, whatever it is that you see, just allow that to do your life for you. You just show up, and you get to enjoy watching the whole thing, and then it becomes very gentle, very joyful, and you get to do silly things like this. Christmas tree! Thank you, Meera. You're amazing, and thanks for putting on this series. I'm looking forward to watching the next one.
Yes, well, the next one will be with Darshana. We don't know what it'll be yet, so if you've got any requests, anything you'd like us to talk about, then let us know. But yeah, thank you, Shukri Devi, for joining me. You're amazing. I love hearing you speak and to hear your experience and your take on things. I think it's just helpful, I think, for people to hear the different experiences and how we've transcended it and how we've changed our relationship with it. So thank you for sharing your experience, Shukri.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to Darshana for sorting the chat box.
Yes, thank you, Darshana. It's made it a lot easier and smoother. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this call, and everybody watching. If you watch on replay, yeah, thank you. Just keep showing up, keep asking questions. If you want to change things, you'll find a way. You'll find a way. When you're one pointed on anything, you know, the answer finds you. So thank you.
Bye, everyone. Lots of love.